My name is Melinda Beezer, and this is video 8 in my incest series. And today we're going to talk about repercussions of sexual abuse. Some of the coping skills that victims of sexual abuse have or use, especially in the incidences in the case of me and my cousin Jennifer, where we don't really have any support system that we can rely on. In my case, I couldn't deal with the abuse that was happening at home, couldn't deal with the fact that my dad was molesting my cousin, and then later I learned he was raping my cousin. I couldn't deal with that. And my personal coping skill for that was that at first I spent a lot of time up in the old barn on our farm. I spent hours upon hours in that old barn because I felt safe there. And then after I returned home to live with my dad, after my mom kicked me out and I didn't have any place else to go, I had to move back in with my dad. I started spending a lot of time with some neighbors. And I, spent a great deal of time in their house, and I really idolized these neighbors. I thought they had the perfect marriage, the perfect family. To me, their family was everything that my family wasn't. I didn't, they were, happy and normal, and there was no child abuse, we'll call the neighbors Anna and John. John wasn't, didn't do things to his kids, and, so to me, I built this whole world around them, and that became my safe zone. And at the same time as it being my safe zone, I was also hiding in plain sight. I hid, what was going on in my life. I played the perfect farm daughter. I played off that my family was happy, that we were normal, that there were no dark secrets in our family, and I put on a happy face, and I wore this mask whenever I was with them to hide what was really going on in my life. And after Jennifer brought charges against my dad the first time, Anna was told, Jennifer and I, were both by that time spending a lot of time up in Anna's house, and Anna, Jennifer had told Anna what was going on. And I had a choice at that point to be honest and, about what was going on and support Jen, or to take the path which I ultimately took and protect my dad and lie to Anna and to John about what was going on. And that's the path I chose. That was the path of self-preservation. I mean, to me, I couldn't imagine what they would think of me or my family if they were to find out about what my dad was doing. I didn't want them to know the family's dark secret. I didn't want them to think less of me. I had a crush on their son Kyle, and I couldn't imagine what he would think of me if he knew my dad had done things to me. That my dad was raping my cousin Jennifer, his cousin. I couldn't imagine. I didn't want to be less in their eyes. And, because I idolized this family. And so for me, that was my coping skill. I became this other person, and this other person that backstabs her cousin who needs her support. And by doing that to Jen, by further isolating her, by getting Anna to take my point, Jennifer was again left out in the cold. And so Jennifer drifted into a sexual relationship with John, Anna's husband. And at first, I didn't believe it. I'm like, oh, no way. Jennifer started talking about this relationship, and I just thought it was a delusion. That she was having some kind of that it was her fantasy world, or so to speak. I couldn't imagine that it was true. And for a long time, I didn't believe it. And, things continued on, and I graduated from high school and went on to college and spent 3 quarters at SCC. And Jennifer, meanwhile, drifted into this sexual relationship with John, and then she was bouncing between a sexual relationship with John and a sexual relationship with my dad, and back and forth and back and forth. And she was fighting with her parents, and she was running around, and they couldn't control her. They didn't know where she was at. And it just all was going to pot. And I wasn't around. And so Jennifer ended up moving in with this guy in his 20s in La Crosse when she was 16. She ended up moving in with this guy while continuing to have a sexual relationship with my dad and continuing to have a sexual relationship with our married neighbor John. And, things just, she quit school, dropped out of school, and of course my dad, as soon as she began this relationship with the guy in town, he, of course, started freaking out. Because now she was somewhere where he wasn't able to see her, wasn't able to touch her, wasn't able to get to her, and he wasn't happy with that, and he wanted her back, and so his reasoning on that was to manipulate me. He called me every frickin' night, ranting about Jennifer and how much trouble she was in, and how this guy was getting her in trouble, and how I needed to get down there and put a stop to this and get Jennifer away from this guy before he destroyed her life, and on and on. And I was trying to concentrate on classes and get a degree, and I just couldn't take it. I had these nightly phone calls and his moaning and whining and manipulating, and it finally got to be too much. I couldn't take it. And that was so I ended up dropping out of college and returning to La Crosse to get Jennifer out of this relationship with this guy in town that was nothing but trouble. And so I moved home like the good daughter. And I broke Jennifer's relationship up with this guy in his 20s. And he was quite the loser. And I got her back. And she moved back out to the ranch. And then, of course, my dad's abuse of her started back up. And he started doing things to get to her. And, of course, at the same time, she's talking about this, what I think is a fantasy relationship with the married neighbor, John. And it continues on and on until one terrible night when I discovered the truth. All this time, I've been thinking that Jennifer made up her relationship with Anna's husband, John, to, as a fantasy world, or, how she's dealing with the stress of my dad's, abuse. Kind of like how I dealt with it. I, built this I idolized this family and kind of, clumped myself in with this family. I figured that was, along the same lines of what she was doing. Well, I was down at my dad's one night, and Jennifer took off to telling me she was going down to a friend's place in Hooper. And I was sitting there, and I had a card for John. It was a birthday card, or an anniversary, but anniversary card. I had this card for John and Anna. And so I thought, well, Jennifer was gone. I'd take the card. I'd go ahead and run the card up the road. So I drove up to their house, or I drove to this neighbor's place. And when I got there, the house was dark and everything. And so I thought, well, they must have gone to Spokane or somewhere and they're not home. So I pulled into their driveway thinking I would just put the card in the pickup, in the carport, and they could, they could just get it from the seat. I'd done that before. And so I pulled into their driveway, and my light shined in onto into the carport area into the area where they parked their cars. And here's Jennifer's pickup sitting there in the dark, and the house is dark and there's no lights on or anything like that. And I proceed to catch Jennifer and John in the dark together. And at that moment, what was left of my life came crashing on down. I realized in one terrible moment that not only was my dad doing things to Jennifer, which was bad enough, but now the father figure that I had adopted, the family I had idolized, the marriage that I thought was perfect between Anne and John, wasn't. John was having an affair with my underage cousin. And let me say that I saw red. And I went berserk. And of course, I went tearing down the frickin' road with every intention of driving into town to tell Anna and John's son Kyle what the frick was going on. But for some reason, I didn't make that drive into town. I stopped down at our place, at my dad's place, and I told him what was going on between John and Jen. Well, of course, he was ticked because Jennifer was supposed to be his. So then, of course, he's mad. And I'm mad. And then, of course, I'm headed out to tell Kyle the truth. Or tell Kyle what I've just seen. Well, Jen, of course, shows up and she manages to talk me down. And no, you can't go down. No, you can't. You know, you're not going to call... You're not going to call Ann in Spokane and tell her what's going on and blah, 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 and manages to talk me down. So, now, this is where we sat. Me, already dealing with my dad's sexual relationship with our cousin Jen, who's who's a teenager, his abuse of me, and now we have the family that I idolized, Anna and John's family, and John having an affair with Jen, my underage cousin. And in the next video, we will discuss the repercussions of that. Thank you, and yes, I come from a community of perverts. I can't tell you how many perverts are in our community. But anyway, like I said, these videos really cross the line. Alright. That's enough for now.